First story. Ruined a bad housemate's life. So I moved into a 4-bedroom uni house. I knew two of the housemates, let's call them Appy and Ben. Due to unfortunate circumstances, our previously planned housemate did not live with us, so we found a new one, Chloe. Chloe is just a horrible housemate. This becomes apparent when they never paid any bills or rent on time, smokes like a chimney inside against our agreement, and leaves home for a few days, leaving a big pile of washing up for us to do, including our pots and pans. Scream gaming on their laptop all the way till 5 a.m. and just walls are very thin in this house. Just to name a few things. Basically, they suck. So it gets still about 4 months in and we cannot stand Chloe. So we have a house meeting. Basically, we sit there and try to explain how we will prefer they don't scream at their laptop. I assume gaming. Until 5 a.m. every night as all of us get up early. But everything we brought up, Chloe denied it. We have each lent Chloe a month's rent and bills too, and Chloe hasn't paid any of us back. Over $1,000 between us. Chloe denied it, saying, "I don't owe you." This got me, Appy and Ben pretty mad. Then a few weeks later, it was a Saturday night and being students, Appy and Ben and I invited friends for drinks. We asked Chloe first and they said they would be out, so that's fine. Turns out they finished work early, so they came home and were shocked to find people there. They went up to their room. They kept coming down and turning the music down. It wasn't even loud in the first place. Chloe got so angry and threw my speaker out of the window. I did not see them do it, but loads of people told me, so I'd had enough. I went to go get my speaker and Chloe came with me to my surprise. And as Chloe was leaving, she keyed my car parked in the driveway. I got up with my speaker and started shouting at her as she walked off. Luckily, we have an automatic light on the side of the house. And the car was driving down my road at the time, and the driver said they had a dashcam and probably caught it out the window to me. I stopped shouting in disbelief and gave him my email address. I went about my night trying to enjoy the party. When it was time to leave, a lot of us hadn't finished our drinks, so we left it on the kitchen table and left. When we got back the next day and had sobered up in the morning, we found all the drinks had been taken, along with the speaker, some headphones, and my laptop. Now I was really mad. The revenge. I logged into my housemate laptop on my email. This guy had pulled through, sent me a small clip of Chloe keying the car along with several close-ups still showing the key in contact. I first confronted Chloe asking if they knew where my stuff was, while Appy and Ben secretly recorded on their phones. Things got heated and they looked like they were going to fight me. I'm a big guy, 6'4", and I'm really not scared. I'm basically just pissing Chloe off. Chloe then swung their fists at me a few times, making contact. I just didn't fight back. I just put my hands and arms over my head and face. Chloe then stomps off thinking they won. Let me remind you that Abby and Ben were recording. I call the police and they show up. I basically say I have a good reason to believe Chloe stole my drinks and other possessions. They go up and knock on Chloe's door and are met with "Go away!" They can't go in without a search warrant. I filed a report about assault and the things stolen relating to the two. The police are very nice and basically tell me how to fill it in. They come back the next day with a warrant for Chloe's arrest for assault and battery. They then search her room and find all the stolen drink bottles, my headphones which clearly were mine, as they only paired with my phone, and my laptop and damaged speaker. I sued Chloe, and won. I had indisputable evidence along with witnesses for all the events. I got $3,000 for the car, speaker and the rent Chloe owed us, and an additional $5,000 on top of it. Chloe went to prison for resisting arrest, assaulting a police officer, assault, destruction of property, theft, and battery. Chloe still had to pay rent for her room, which we used as a gem. Next story. 30 years later and they are still standing. I grew up on a county road with 4 houses. Our mailboxes were on the main road. Someone kept vandalizing the 4 mailboxes by driving through them, breaking the post entirely. After 4 or 5 times, my dad and the neighbors hatched a plan. My dad told me to go to bed early, that we have a lot of work to do in the morning. After breakfast, we go to the mailbox and there are the other 3 neighbors and their sons, along with a tractor with a post hole digger, railroad ties, cement, and a mini mixer. We proceed to dig 2 very deep holes. Digging holes is very backbreaking where I live, as the land was a very rocky region. You only dug about 6 inches before we had to dig out a bunch of rocks in the hole. We took turns digging out the rocks over the entire morning. There was a lot of motivation as this was the last time we were going to fix the mailboxes. We dig 2 holes 6 feet deep and hoist 2 uncut 12-foot railroad ties in each hole. We then proceed to fill the top of each hole with cement. We added a cross beam and attached our new mailboxes. After an entire day of digging holes and pouring concrete, we all sat back and enjoyed our handiwork. A month goes by and the kids and I walk to the mailbox to meet the bus. We discover what happens when a moving car meets an unmovable object. There is an old blue Buick Century with a smashed up grille and pinned wheel, and nobody in the car. This was well before cell phones, so we ran to the closest house and told the mom what we saw. We go back to the main road and get on the bus with the car still there. We find out later the highway ticketed the driver, a 14-year-old kid, and towed the vehicle. Now, where I grew up, you could get a daytime driver's license at 14. One catch: if you receive 2 violations over 2 years, you lose your license until you turn 16 years old. The kid was ticketed for speeding a week prior, and oops, he now lost his license for 1.5 years. Insurance found out about the vandalism and refused to pay the claim. Then put the insurance plan in the high-risk category even when the kids couldn't drive. The kid's dad tried to fight it by saying the mailboxes were not legally built, and turns out mailbox construction is set by the state and county. In our state/county did not have any regulations on county mailboxes. I smile every time I go home. After 30 years, the indestructible mailboxes are still there. Next story. A $600 apology. A couple days ago, I went out to the store to get something I needed. I was checking on the phone exactly what it was I needed to get when I heard a slam that I knew came from my car. I looked to the side and saw some older guy and his door embedded into mine. I opened my window and he said, "I hit your door," gave me a shrug and proceeded to get in his car. I yelled for him to wait so I could assess the damage, as the hit felt pretty significant. As I expected, there was a scratch dug into the paint down to the middle, and scratched beyond that as if he had pushed it further after the initial hit, as well as a big dent to go with it. I noticed he was driving off, so I ran out to him and signaled him to roll the window down. "Hey man, that was a pretty significant hit. And you're just driving off without even an apology or anything? It's just a scratch, it's nothing." "No, it's not. The paint came off down to the middle and it's a pretty big dent. You were parked too close to me." The heck I was. I parked perfectly within the lines, look. "Well, so am I." "Then you had no excuse to hit it. You know what? Give me your insurance information." He proceeded to slam on the gas and leave, and I managed to snap a picture of his plates. I called the sheriff's department as we do a lot of work for them and know everyone at the department well. But unfortunately they told me they could not do absolutely anything because it was just a door ding, and could not provide me any information from his tags. We live in a tiny town, so I go into the store and ask for his name. I get his first name. From his first name, I was able to find his Facebook. A lot of people named the same as this jerk in my town. From his Facebook, I found we had mutual friends. From those mutual friends, I found out where he lived. And from where he lived and his name, I found his phone number online. I found out everything there is to know about this guy. His family, where he likes to hang out on Saturdays, where and who he works for, what kind of beer he drinks, literally everything, except what he wears to bed. For his tags, I got the VIN online. I messaged him to give him a chance to do the right thing. That went over as I expected. It was Friday night, so I could not call anywhere to get more information. So I messaged him. To make it short, he kept saying, "Meet me in the morning if it's so important," and making fun of me, saying how his car door has a red mark and how I can do whatever I want, and he will just get away with it. Come Monday, I called the local DMV as my investigation said they can give me the name of his insurance company and nothing else with the information I had. I was right. I called in the claim yesterday and I got the email with the estimate totaling to almost $600. And here's the kicker. I work at a body shop and could have fixed it myself for free, not even a dime. The only reason I went through with it was sweet revenge. Thanks for screwing up and causing me to get some much needed money, I guess. Next story. Uncle bankrupts his previous employer. My uncle is an Indian doctor. In the 90s, there was a massive doctor shortage in Australia, so the government gave him citizenship. Unfortunately, you still had to sit 3 expensive exams to work as a doctor in Australia. These exams cost thousands of dollars. Only happened twice a year, had limited sitting spots/times, and had arbitrary pass/fail marks. So many Indian doctors ended up becoming taxi drivers/small businessmen, etc. My uncle decided instead he would reapply and go through Australian medical school. Sure enough, being a doctor for 10 plus years makes medical school easy, and my uncle was top of his class. He decided since he was already pushing 40 plus and had a family, he would apply to become GP, family physician, instead of applying to be a surgeon like most of his teachers has suggested. At the time, many desperate foreign doctors were applying for GP residency. They would essentially get treated like crap, and they would be forced to work unpaid overtime. They would not be given proper study time or leave to sit mandatory exams. They would pocket the meals, accommodation, study, leave allowances that you were supposed to be paid by the training college. They would roster you to work every Saturday, Sunday shift, and if you refuse, they would give you a bad review and your training would be jeopardized. This mostly happened to foreign doctors, as most of them will be in bad debt and highly desperate for any sort of work. When my uncle graduated, he applied for GP training in a practice that is located within an Indian ethnic enclave, so that he would have access to religious food/schools, etc. for the kids. Sure enough, this practice engaged in all of the above nonsense. My uncle would work every single Saturday shift, and during his dedicated study time, he would have to come into work. He got reprimanded for not overcharging patients in line with their framework. First of all, when my aunt was really sick and hospitalized, they wouldn't give him any time off to look after her and the kids. The owner of the clinic was a white GB who was openly racist against Indians, Asians, and Aboriginal people, who were a large percentage of the clientele of this clinic. My uncle bided his 3 years, and as soon as his documentation came through making him a GP, he quit that instant. He went down to the local bank and got a loan to open up his own practice. All his old patients quickly moved with him to the new practice. The first year he struggled, but his practice quickly became known and word spread. Surprise, surprise, foreign trained doctors actually work well and care about their patients if you actually care about them and give them appropriate wages/living conditions. More patients and more doctors looked to work with my uncle. Within 2 years, my uncle had a GB practice that had 4 doctors, 2 nurses, 2 trainees, and a manager. His practice easily rivaled his original teachers. He then started 2 more GB practices with the money he was pulling in. These practices trapped his old teacher's clinic in a 2-kilometer triangle. He would advertise heavily and make sure he could take as much business from his old teacher as he could. Within 5 years, his old teacher's practice went from hiring 6 doctors, 4 nurses, and 6 trainees to just 1 doctor, his old teacher, and no one else. His old teacher tried to sell up his practice to the other doctors, but no one would purchase it. Given how successful my uncle's 3 surrounding practices were, he then tried to sell it to my uncle, who refused to buy it, even at a ridiculously low sale price. Instead, he waited for the bank to repossess his old teacher's clinic and then purchased it for a bit more money from the bank. My uncle then repurposed the building into his main offices, from where he runs his 3 other practices. He made sure to redevelop his old boss's room into a staff toilet, just as one final tribute to the human turd that was his old boss.